Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Sunday, March 18th. The last weekend of winter is about to come to an end, but the winter season is likely to continue at least through the middle part of next week and maybe even a little bit beyond that. Over the last couple of days, we've been talking about the fact that this upper air pattern that we have is incredibly complex. There's so much energy running around, a lot of little shortwave troughs, and then you've got this blocking low east of Newfoundland, and every model run has been keying in on one thing or another, and every model has been sort of keying in on one thing or another. And we point out going into the end of last week that as we get through the weekend, expect to start to see models tighten up a bit. And we are indeed seeing that at the moment. So I'm going to take you through what I think is going to happen. I'm starting to get an idea here that we've always been dealing with this possibility of two separate lows coming through, one on Tuesday and one on Wednesday. And usually what happens in these instances when models are dealing with multiple short waves, they tend to overdo one and then underdo the other. So in reality, at least for my neck of the woods, oftentimes you just really wind up with one of them producing an event and the other one just being something minor or perhaps not getting involved at all. But there are all players in this in this complicated scenario we have. So let's take a look. I'm going to go straight to the models, and then we're going to come back and I'll go over what I'm thinking is going to happen. So I'm going to start off with the NAM model from late this afternoon. I'm going to tell you right off the bat from what I'm going to show you is that all the models today, be it the Canadian, European, GFS, or the NAM, all have the same idea. They seem to be tightening up their view of this, and that we may be now starting to deal with more of the usual model errors that we have, where the GFS model, for example, wants to be a little bit more suppressed in southeast off the coast, and the NAM likes to be tucked in further north and west. But let's run through what's going on. So we'll start with, this is at 0Z tonight, so this is at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and you can see that the low is coming out to the east across right along the Oklahoma-Kansas border there with some heavy rains to the northeast and also a little moisture down in the southeastern part of the U.S. And we've got snow up through parts of Colorado, northwestern Kansas through Nebraska and up into the Dakotas. The west coast is fairly quiet. A little snow up in the northern Rockies. And the east is quiet but cold. And you can see the isobars tighter across northeastern New England and on up through the Canadian Maritimes as far out as we can see. That is the low that is sitting east of Newfoundland that is basically acting as a block here. And we've got a high that is coming down from central Canada and beginning to push toward the Great Lakes and eventually going to build into southeastern Canada and dominate the flow to our north. So moving along through the nighttime hours and into tomorrow morning, midday, we have a low now moving into southwestern Missouri, right along the Arkansas border. You can see how the NAM depicts the radar echoes here, just kind of arced around, just reflecting the upper air feature. That low moves, the L is actually printed in northern Georgia, but it could be that the low center is actually further north than that. So we're now into the early morning hours on Tuesday, and as we move into Tuesday morning, you can see one low center back in through Kentucky, and there's the beginnings of a secondary low that's going to pop up along the coast, and that wave runs out to the northeast. Now, notice on this run, this is now Tuesday afternoon, you don't see a whole lot going on across central and southern New Jersey down into the Delmarva Peninsula. There's some sleet in northwestern Virginia, and back up into western Maryland and northeastern West Virginia, you have some snow. And then, of course, with the upper feature moving along where the surface low is with the quote primary, you've got an arc of snow back through western PA and across Ohio and back through Indiana on the west side. Meanwhile, I just want to point out activity in the western part of the United States is going to be increasing significantly as we go through this week. There are going to be a series of storms coming into the west with heavy rains and snows, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But watch what happens here in the east. That first wave, you really can't see it too well. There's actually a surface low that develops out to the east and runs out northeastward, but the low that forms here winds up that the model is keying in on this particular low and making it the most important part of all of this. This is when the upper air support begins to swing around. This is where models are trying to resolve all this with all this energy running around. And by Wednesday morning, 5 a.m., we have one low center east of the Virginia coast, and it's actually fairly deep, 989 millibars. Notice that there's an expanding area of precipitation across New Jersey and to about Long Island and back through all of Pennsylvania, Ohio, eastern Indiana, back through most of Kentucky and West Virginia and western Virginia. This is all in the form of snow. That cold high sitting over James Bay, feeding down some cold air. And then the low really intensifies east of Cape May during Wednesday and just kind of sits there all day. Cold air gets involved, the upper air dynamics get involved, and you start to see some heavier snows break out up into southern New England and to southeastern New York and northeastern PA. It's really pushed this area much further to the north, and the European model is actually not that far away from this, and neither is the Canadian in terms of where the NAM places the low. Fairly close to the coast, fairly tight pressure gradient develops here. There will be some pretty decent wind with this along coastal areas, and you can see how much it does produce a fair amount of snow here across southern New England, down through New Jersey, into the Delmarva Peninsula, and back to the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area, if you want to believe it. And notice, as we move through the night, Wednesday night into, this is as far as it goes now, which is 2 a.m. Thursday, that low really doesn't move very much as the upper air support basically kind of lifts up and I don't want to say slows to a crawl, but it really is taking its time doing what it usually what it needs to do to get this thing out of the way. In the west, by the way, while all of this is going on, we're getting heavy rains and snows from Southern California all the way up the coast, up into Washington and Oregon, and some snows up in the mountains. Now, I'm going to switch to the GFS. And actually, before I do that, let me switch to the upper air so we can look at what the jet stream is doing in all of this. And switch for me if you would. I'm not sure why it's not, but it's supposed to. Let's try one more time. Okay, it's being evil on me. Hang on a second. Let's see if I can get it to switch to the GFS. And unfortunately, I'm getting a hiccup here. Why? I don't know. Let me try it off camera. Let me see if I'm having some problems. Yeah, it seems like everybody's trying to jump in at the same time. Let me try this again. Oh, boy. All right, you know what? It's not doing it for me. So why don't we, before I come back, I'll come back to this in a second. Let's go over to my snow forecast map for what I've come up with. Okay, I don't think that there's going to be that much going on Tuesday if these models are correct. We are going to see more happening later Tuesday night and then into Wednesday and Wednesday night. But, oh, finally, it's starting to change. Okay, great. I'll come back to that in a second. But here we go. Sorry for the delay. So this is what I'm thinking right now. And I actually drew this, by the way, before I saw the NAM and the GFS and the SREF models. The SREF models are very supportive of the NAM. So I have to allow here for the time of year, the time of the day that the precipitation is falling, and a few other factors. This is an early call, and more than likely it is going to change. But I'm thinking a slushy 1 to 3 inches for Long Island and northern New Jersey, less as you go north and west. And then I stuck a band of 3 to 6 inches from central New Jersey on southward into northern Maryland and across much of southern Pennsylvania. It's a pretty simplistic view of the snow because, frankly, I'm not good enough to figure out what the snow is going to be like 2.5 days ahead of time, based on models on a situation that's volatile in a normal case, and it's super volatile in what we have going on right now. So let's come back. I got the upper air on this map up here so we can illustrate all the moving parts. Now, look up in eastern Canada and eastern New England. That is the western side of a strong upper low that is sitting east of Newfoundland with a northwest flow over Canada. James Vitale, put your question on the board. I'll come back to it as soon as I can. Now, we've got, this is, by the way, Tuesday morning. You see the low, there's the two closed circles in southern Illinois. So that reflects the upper air energy with the system that's moving across the southern half of the United States and into the Tennessee Valley. You've got a short wave that's approaching the western Dakotas that's dropping down from the north. That's also part of this complicated equation. And what the models are all doing is basically taking that easternmost short wave, and you can see that part of it swings out offshore. That would be your lead wave, but a lot of that energy hangs back. The block now has pulled out enough to allow for some room. We have ridging that's going on across eastern Canada here, southeastern Canada, over Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and eastern Maine. So that is allowing the jet stream to pivot around. The northern shortwave is now dropping into the western Great Lakes. And as we carry it along, it basically lifts this system up to the northeast, where you get this wrapped up upper air low sitting just southeast of the New Jersey coast by Thursday morning. Ridge flies up the Rockies, deep trough out in the western part off the west coast with the systems that are coming in to the west. So we do have a very energetic and a very dynamic upper air that's developing here. The question is do the models have it right this time around and how they time all these pieces to come together? There's still some room here for things to go differently, and we have to leave that possibility open. So, in terms of being specific at this point, it's really very, very difficult to do, if not impossible. I'm going to go to the GFS so we can gather some clues with the GFS. The GFS always, we've seen this all winter where the GFS likes to keep these lows a little bit more suppressed, but we'll look at the upper air with the GFS, and you could see the mess that the GFS has here with all these bumps that you see. These are all short waves, and you could pick out. There's one from Kentucky down into northern Alabama. There's another one back in southwestern Missouri down into East Texas. There's yet a third weaker short wave from eastern South Dakota south into Nebraska, and then you have another one coming in to the western Dakotas and western Montana, all while the block is still holding with the low east of Newfoundland. Now, this is at 2 a.m. Tuesday. Load. Everybody's going on at the same time. It makes doing this very, very difficult and very frustrating. Let me see. Sometimes if I have my phone too close to my computer, things get in the way. And it's still trying to load. Let me see if I can get it to reload. Okay. I appreciate everybody's patience. I know it's good. Awesome. Got a better connection there. Nope, did not get a better connection there. I'll just give a little time for some of the maps to populate. In the meantime, James Vitale, did you post your question up here? you know what happens? Everybody's going into the server at the same time. Let's see. All right, you guys are asking specific questions about all sorts of things, and I'm going to tell you I can't, you know, here is James Vitale. My question is, what do you mean by a slushy 3 to 6 inches? Do I mean it's going to be a mix? Okay, I guess what I mean by that is that you're going to have accumulation, you know, in a situation like this at this time of year, especially during the daytime. You wind up with snow accumulating, you know, on colder grassy surfaces, et cetera, but not necessarily on the pavement during the day, unless it's snowing really, really hard. I'm not going to be able to determine that. And, you know, frankly, I'm just kind of going through my experience and dealing with these storms over the years when they happen in the spring. When it falls at night, it's a different story, but you got, you know, the time of year, the sun angle and everything else now really coming into play. So it makes forecasting total snow amounts very, very difficult. So let's just call it a slushy 3 to 6 inches where, you know, some places might see the low end, some places may see the higher end, depending on temperature and depending on local terrain, elevation, and so on. That's pretty much where I'm going with all this. Okay, so now let's come back to the GFS here as we go forward and take a look at its view of what the jet stream. I really am sorry, folks. This is what happens. Everybody is coming in and looking at these maps at the same time, and it's just making for very, very slow load times. So I'll tell you what. Let me come back to this. Very, very frustrating. You know, I like to do this. Okay, now it's come up. All right, so now we're at Tuesday night. You can see how the trough here is now looking a bit more phased. That northern shortwave is getting involved with the southern stream system. The tilt goes from Minnesota south to the southeastward toward the southeast coast. It's not the tightest looking trough in the world, and again, that's reflecting the fact that we've got still so many different spokes running around here. The block to the north has weakened, and there's actually even there's an upper low that forms south of James Bay that's pulling back to the west. All of this is going to play a big role in how this winds up. Again, everybody's on here at the same time, so we're getting these maps piecemeal. All right, it may drop it in. I moved it ahead 12 hours so we can take a look at this. Oh, boy. In the meantime, I think I'll grab another question here. So James Hines, so when they measure snowfall this time of year, is there any guesswork on how much snow would have fallen if there would have been in the middle of winter? Well, a lot of it depends on temperatures. You know, even in the middle of winter, you could have situations with borderline temperatures. So you would have to do, you know, I think a 10-to-1 ratio probably works well with this when it falls in the middle of winter. All right, folks, you know what? This is not working here for some reason. And I think, again, it's usually because of the fact that everybody's crashing the server at the same time. So I apologize for that. I'm going to bring up the current National Weather Service watches and warnings map just to show you what's going on today, which is not really too much. Bring that up to the top. We've got nothing going on east of the Mississippi. We actually have severe thunderstorm watches up for parts of northeastern Texas because there is some severe weather that's going to be going on today with all of this. And, of course, areas to the west dealing with high winds and red flag warnings that are up because of the super dry conditions that continue across West Texas. Winter weather advisories scattered around parts of Colorado and also through the western Dakotas and in southeastern Montana. We don't have too much happening in the western part of the U.S. at the moment. The storming activity in the west is going to increase considerably as we move through this coming week. Let's see if I've got the U.S. radar up here. Maybe we could take a look and look at some of the severe weather. Actually, I do have a regional view here of the Gulf states, so we could at least take a look at what's going on up there right now. Starting to see, you can see the edge of eastern Texas, the area where the severe thunderstorm watch is up. We are starting to see some convection develop here. You can see the red echoes that are popping up, but look for that activity to increase as we move through the next several hours. So during the evening and the first part of the overnight hours. And we also have some heavy downpours swinging across parts of Arkansas and back over through parts of northeastern Oklahoma. And you've got a band of heavy rains moving across Alabama right now and down into coastal Alabama and into the Florida Panhandle. Again, I apologize, folks. You can see here the spinning wheel, everybody jumping on at the same time to look at these weather models. I have to think, always smiling, that this will, what you've seen with snows today, with this latest round of cold air that moved out of Siberia and played itself through your neck of the woods in Ireland and in England, should play itself out in the next day or two. And I'm guessing that should be it. It's been a strange month, so don't hold me to this. If it winds up coming back, don't be at all surprised. With this. Nick Cortez, I know you hit super chat, and thank you. The NAM is not really ridiculous. The NAM is certainly every bit as valid in terms of what it shows as the other models are. They're not that far apart. They all have the same idea. So it's a question of, how tucked in is it going to be? And when does the bulk of the precip fall? Does it fall through during the winter time? I'm sorry, during the daytime? During the winter time. During the daytime, or is it going to fall more at night? I'm trying to load these maps up. Hopefully, Levi Cowan's Tropical Tidbits, things start slowing down on the server. They seem to be. I'm always smiling. I'm punching it up off screen. It might be loading a bit faster there. So let me try it here first. And I can tell you that whatever snow is going on tonight in southwestern England and the south shores of Ireland comes to an end. You should be dry. And then it looks like the flow comes in from off the Atlantic, so you start to get milder air and waves of rain as we move through this week. So another day or two for you with regards to this cold air, and then I think you should be in a much better place later on this week. And yeah, I hope it is the last one for you as far as cold and snow, because it really is, like I said, this March has been a strange month. One more day of easterlies, then high building over the UK, cutting off the Siberian air and getting it into a northerly over UK. You got it, Ian Simpson. You pretty much said it better than I did. That's exactly what's going to happen. Epic Hunter, at this point, should we be mainly looking at the NAM rather than the GFS? Look at them all. They all have the same, they've all come around to the same idea. So I think you can look at all of them, just the NAM has been better with this all along. I will say that all winter long, and certainly for the last several weeks, it's been much better with all this. All right, I'm hoping that this thing is doing. Let's try this again. I appreciate everybody's patience. I'm not the most orthodox channel in the world because I do things on the fly, but you know what? I think that just adds to the fun in all of this. Okay, so here's the upper air on the GFS. It's not nearly as well developed as the NAM is. The NAM has got that upper low really wrapped up and further west. But again, the GFS is not out of its idea, still showing, scattered energy running around, still winds up developing a fairly, I wouldn't say intense maybe, but let's call it a strong system, as it's just a little bit further to the east. And then you've got this system that's crashing into the west. So if I can, I'll bring up the surface map. Hopefully it'll come down a little faster. And it did. Yippee! Okay, so there's your surface low Tuesday morning. That first wave moves out, kind of gets lost, goes to the east-northeast. The second wave develops, high to the north, cold air bleeding southward from snow-covered upstate New York and New England. And there's your GFS further east. It really, when you look at the two of them, they're not that versus the NAM. This is the GFS, and this is the NAM's view. The NAM has the low just, because it has a much more wrapped up upper air, the wrapped up cutoff, it has that low tucked in almost underneath it, while the GFS is a bit weaker and a bit more diffuse. It has it stretched out further to the east. But you know what? It's not out of the scope of imagination to see the GFS start to push back to the west. We've seen that happen often enough. I still think at this point there's too much variability to be overly specific and to come to any kind of final conclusion regarding how this is all going to play out. The door still remains wide open in terms of trying to pinpoint specifics here. So I'm not going to say anything is imminent regarding snow or snow amounts. My forecast is an early guess. I could go all day with bringing up precip amounts. The NAM is very wet, has every bit of 1 to 2 inches of liquid precipitation well inland of the coast, and the GFS is further southeast, so it's got most of the heavier precip central and southern New Jersey southward, with lesser and touching Long Island, and lesser amounts as you go further to the north and west. Meanwhile, look out in the west. You can see this first round of big rain and snow comes in as we go through the end of the week. And then another system starts to come in over the weekend with some more rain and snow. That first shot looks stronger than the second. And then over time, that translates eastward as we move through the last days of March. And who knows what's going to happen by the time. I want to just get through this week before we even take a look at that. And since we're having some luck, let me see if I can bring Europe up here. And we can. And always smiling, as Mr. Simpson pointed out, there's your low that developed in the English Channel today with snows in southern England, southwestern England, and touching the south shore of Ireland. And you've got the easterly flow. The high has moved out to the northwest of Scotland and going over through time. That low drops down into the Mediterranean. The high moves overhead. The flow is drier into midweek. And then in come the systems from the Atlantic, from the west, which is a generally warmer flow, and the cold air from Siberia is pretty much cut off. So, as I said, hopefully that is the last of it as far as these beasts from the east coming in. I'm not even going to bother showing you the snow maps because they're pretty meaningless at this point. Some of the NAM goes kind of crazy in some places, but as I've said many times with the snow maps, you have to use them with a huge salt mine full of salt, and you're probably better off trying to figure out how much melted liquid precipitation is going to fall. And once you have that idea intact, you can start massaging it regarding what time of day does it fall? Does it fall in the daytime? Fall at night? When does the heavy precip fall? If it snows during the day, what are the temperatures going to be? Is it going to be 33 or 4? Is it going to be 29, 30, or 31? That's cold air up. That is cold air that's up in eastern and central Canada that's bleeding down over snow-covered New England and upstate New York. So I expect the low-level temperatures to be cold here, and maybe colder than what models give it credit for, because notice even just today here, we had models taking temperatures late last week here into the upper 40s to around 50, and many areas didn't even get out of the 30s today. And we were down in the 20s this morning, and in some places even in the teens. And we're going to have a repeat performance of that tonight and into Monday morning. Unusually chilly for this time of year. Joshua Pan, yeah, you know what, those other models with the AR, you can only look at so many of these things before you start to go crazy. I kind of try to keep it limited. I would suggest get a better handle on once you get a good handle on what exactly is going on, then and what you think should happen, and then use models as your guide to take you forward, and not the other way around, because that will get you lost. That'll just drive you crazy, and this way you start to really come to understand, get a really good understanding of how systems evolve and how all of this stuff is supposed to work, or in theory anyway. What do you mean, Garo Vestas? What do I mean? Everyone's going on at the same time. Do you mean the models are loading up at the same time? No, what the GFS comes out between 5:30 and starts coming out at 5:30 Eastern Daylight Time now. So the run of the model is not completely done yet. So when I say everybody is going on, what I mean by that is all the weather weenies are crashing Levi Cowan's tropicaltidbits.com website at the same time, and he has, that kind of crowds the server up, and it slows everything down, especially during snow, potential snowstorms and hurricanes. This tends to happen a lot. We're all going on together trying to get to see what the new maps are showing. It's great. He's got a popular website, and he's getting tons of traffic. So it just makes it tough. That's why the delays are like this. If I did my live video 2 hours from now, we wouldn't have this problem. Again, going through everybody here. Anthony Orr, do you know if aircraft will be sent to get data into the models? It's very complex. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any messages from the Weather Service regarding that yet. I imagine if that's going to happen, they wouldn't be saying anything today. Probably tomorrow. But still looks like there's going to be a well tucked in deep storm east of the New Jersey coast. My suspicion is that they may want to do that to help things along. Timothy Veltman wants to know, is March 25th too far out to know who's getting what? Yes, it is too far out. Okay, you're looking at the next storm, and we're still looking at this one. Let's get through this one first. Delvin's here. I haven't seen you in a while. Delvin pointing out that the GFS takes to about 6:50 and sometimes as late as 7:10. Before it's all done. So when the model comes out, by the way, Garo, it doesn't come out all 384 hours. All those panels don't come out all at once. They come out one at a time, or two. You'll see 2 or 3 of them pop up every 5 to 10 minutes. So you go and you look at what you got, then you wind up going back in. So that's all this extra traffic. The same people are going in over and over again, including me. Sebastian, do I think Central North Carolina will get any snow out of this? Gee, let me see. I haven't been paying too much attention that far south. Let's take a look. I'm going to do it off camera for you if it's all right, and I'll just describe it to you. Yeah, just see the new GFS, by the way, is only out to 234 hours. So, it's not impossible. Not impossible that you could get some, if that second low really intensifies and wraps up, you could see cold air drain down southward into the mountains of western North Carolina. So I'm going to say that you do have a chance of seeing this. This would probably be more along the lines of, say, Tuesday night into Wednesday, if it's going to happen. Okay, but I think you got a shot. Let's see. If you look up current status of the NSEP production suite, you can check NWS's weather models and how long it takes to roll it out. Thank you, Delvin, for that. Let's see. Ryan Ford, do I think the intermediary run of the NAM today is accurate considering that these runs don't produce upper air data? There's some meteorologists don't like to use the mid-cycle runs. They do tend to hiccup, but my view on that is all the cycle runs tend to hiccup one way or another. I have found the mid-cycle runs actually useful. Sometimes they pick up on a developing trend. And by the way, I would be suspect of the NAM today. I would be more suspect of the NAM today if it didn't have the other models kind of showing the same idea. Okay, the other models are, as I said, are not that different. It's a matter of positioning and how phased the upper air is or isn't, but they're all reasonably close to each other. So that lends me a little more confidence. And also the SREF cycle model, which I found useful, was very wet in terms of liquid precip that it developed. It did increase its snow amounts on this run, doubled them from the last run, which cut them in half from the run before. But it also interestingly showed mixing going on as far north as White Plains, which is just north of New York City. So that kind of tells me that I didn't get to see the SREF maps that come with that, but that kind of tells me that the SREF may have a much more tucked in solution like the NAM versus the GFS. And again, the European and the Canadian are not that far away from what the NAM has. And even the RGEM looks like it's following the NAM relatively closely. TechMan, the SREF models, I'll give you the link. I don't know if you get the whole link will come up in the chat, but let me punch it up here for you. And hang on. Okay, so if you can't link directly from this, just cut and paste it, okay? It's www.spc.noaa.gov/exper/s/sr_. I don't know why I read that to you. But if you're not going to be able to link necessarily straight from there, but if you can't, just cut and paste it. I'm streaming James Vitale using OBS Live Studio, which is available. It's an open source. It's free, and it's a great little program to use if you want to live stream with it. It allows you to do all these, switching and bringing up different sources at all different times. So I do highly recommend it. Okay, so Wayne asked what I would suggest you do is just search SREF on Google. Just search SREF, S-R-E-F, and then the word plume, P-L-U-M-E, SREF plume. Okay. Let's see. Always smiling. Your snow was dry and powdery. Oh, that Siberian cold air really brought in some very cold air aloft to create a dry, powdery snow. I saw some of the temperatures in some places were down in the 20s, so it's pretty cold. Brad and Doherty, could the dam be overdone? Well, that's a good question. It is possible it's overdone. If it has the idea of a wrapped up upper air low overdone, then yeah, it probably is. But I will tell you that the European precip amounts on today's run, not only was it much further north and west, for the first time, it actually brought half an inch of liquid up to about New York City and Long Island, and it had every bit of an inch to an inch and a half of liquid through much of central and southern New Jersey. The NAM, the European with a little imagination, is not that far away from what the NAM did. If it tucks in a little further north and west, you could easily push that 1 inch line up 60 or 70 miles further north. So I wouldn't rule it out. I certainly wouldn't discount what the NAM did late this afternoon. I want to see it do it again at 0Z, and I want to specifically see it do it again tomorrow morning on the 12Z run. If we start to see a degree of consistency here with how it's handling this second coastal low, then we can start to tune up these snow forecasts. I feel very I feel okay with what I have. I don't really necessarily feel confident. If you joined late, this is what I'm doing here with regards to a very early call snow forecast. This is for later Tuesday afternoon into early Thursday. I think that first wave is going to be less important, and it's the second low that's going to be more important. A slushy 1 to 3 because of the fact that some of this is going to fall in the daytime and some of it's going to fall at night. Some surfaces will accumulate, some won't. Lesser amounts going north and west, a slushy 3 to 6 over central southern New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, northern Maryland, and northern Delaware. And, slightly lower amounts as you go south of that line. Look for this to change. I don't often change my early call fall maps, snowfall maps. I usually hold on to them as long as I can. But it was kind of at the point now where I had to put something out. The Weather Service has their maps up. They really didn't change very much from today. If you go to my website, meteorologistjoecioffi.com, and on the menu near the top, just click on snow forecasts. You can get, I have every National Weather Service map from Virginia to Maine up in that list, and you can pull the map up, and those maps update automatically. So when the Weather Service updates them, those maps will update as well. Timothy Veltman, they'll talk about a forecast low of 14. I don't know where you are, Seafarer, but that is cold for this time of year. I'm still on TV, James Vitalia. I saw you ask that question. Not on the weekends, although sometimes I do show up on Channel 11 on the weekends, and I'm on Fios 1 News Monday through Friday, usually for the evening shows beginning at 5 o'clock. But tomorrow I'm actually working dayside, so I will be on starting at noon till about 4 p.m. Let's see. Techman, you hit 61 in Adams County. Okay, in PA today. All right. Let me see. That just sounds a little odd, but I did notice that areas in southern Pennsylvania were going to make it to the upper 40s, but I can't imagine. Let me just take a look. Guys, you also have to remember, too, I do need time off every once in a while. I can't do this 7 days a week without going crazy. And I'm just pulling up some obs here. I mean, I do see some low 50s. In parts of Pennsylvania, but I can't imagine that you couldn't have hit. Where did you get that number from? I'd be very curious. I don't see anything here at the moment. The sun is going down now. Those high temperatures shouldn't be that far off, but I don't see anything at the moment. I mean, even down in D.C., it's in the 50s. You got to go down into Virginia to find your first 60 degree temperature north and west of Richmond. So I'd be curious where you got that temperature from. Let's see. Ryan Ford, why don't I work on picks regularly on weekends? Well, they got other people working there. Really, that's what it boils down to. I worked weekends at picks for 11 years back from 1996 to 2007, but the television business is one where things change quite a bit. And I did leave, but they have me back from time to time. And actually, at this point in my life, it really works for me. But thanks anyway for asking. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Always smiling. I try. I really appreciate it. Thank you. It's I've become really fascinated and interesting in weather in your world there. And happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way, one day late. And tomorrow, by the way, is St. Joseph's Day, which gets slightly less attention than St. Patrick's Day. But, St. Joseph was a cool dude. And it's a very big Italian feast. So Zeppelis are the thing for St. Joseph's Day. So if you're near a bakery that has Italian stuff, run out and get some Zeppelis for yourself. Or even if you go to pizza, some pizza places will do it. And actually, if you want to make them yourself, just buy yourself some pizza dough and then roll them up into kind of a loose ball and then deep fry them and put a little powdered sugar on them. Maybe not the healthiest thing in the world, but you know what? St. Joseph's Day is one day a year, so go for it. And thank you very much. Always smiling. Really appreciate it. Same thank you to Shelly Man Studios. And any of you guys out there that are Joes, happy St. Joseph's Day. Always was a big deal in my family. Your birthday, as Italians, your birthday and your name day were the two really important days, right up there with Christmas. But your birthday and your name day were a big deal. Delvin, every day is Joe Cioffi Day, 9 days a week, 24/9. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Okay, we're not going to set a record tonight, Delvin. I'm going to put an end to this right now. So everybody's job tonight is to relax, have a good time. Let me do a promotion, by the way. One of my close friends, Mike Panici, he works on the show that is debuting tonight on CBS at 8 o'clock off camera. It's called Instinct, and if you've got no specific TV plans, give it a watch at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, Instinct, and keep your fingers crossed that the show gets picked up for a full season next year. That'll keep him employed, and that's a good thing. All right, folks, let me let you know what's going on. I might sneak a Facebook Live later tonight. If not, I've got website posts galore on meteorologistjoecioffi.com, so go ahead and do that and take a look. And I will be tomorrow. I will do a YouTube live stream tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern because I won't be hitting the road until after the rush hour is over. I refuse to drive in New York rush hour. I wait for it to finish because it takes me. I get home at almost the same time, and I have no intention of spending 3 hours on the road. So by all means, YouTube live stream tomorrow at 6 o'clock. I'll try to sneak a Facebook live stream tonight at night around 9 or 9:30. It's unless I'm starting to fall asleep by then. And open mind as far as where we're going with this, going forward with this developing situation for next week. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.